Most people think self-sabotage is laziness, but that's not what it is. You believe you're trying to improve your life, trying to grow, trying to heal, trying to move forward. But deep inside your mind, another system is running. A system designed to keep you exactly where you are. And the worst part? Most people never realize it's happening. Self-sabotage doesn't begin with failure. It begins with protection. A hidden psychological mechanism created to avoid pain that slowly becomes a prison. And once the cycle starts, every decision begins pulling you further away from the person you could have become. This is every stage of self-sabotage. Stage 1, self-doubt. Self-sabotage always begins quietly. Not with destruction, not with chaos, but with uncertainty. A small internal voice starts questioning everything. Am I good enough? What if I fail? What if people see who I really am? At first, it feels harmless, but the brain begins creating hesitation patterns. You stop trusting your instincts. You overanalyze simple choices. You delay action. And slowly, confidence gets replaced by fear prediction. The mind starts preparing for failure before anything even happens. This is the first crack in the system. Stage 2, avoidance. Once doubt grows strong enough, the brain starts avoiding discomfort entirely. Not because you're lazy, but because your nervous system sees uncertainty as danger. You begin postponing conversations, goals, opportunities, change. Temporary comfort becomes addictive. Your brain rewards avoidance with relief, and relief becomes reinforcement. This creates a dangerous loop. The more you avoid, the more powerful fear becomes, until eventually, even small actions feel emotionally exhausting. Avoidance is where self-sabotage becomes behavioral. Stage 3, negative loops. Now the mind enters repetition mode. The same thoughts replay endlessly. You'll fail again. You always ruin things. What's the point? The brain starts building neural shortcuts around negativity. And over time, those thoughts stop feeling like thoughts. They start feeling like reality. This is the stage where self-sabotage becomes identity. You no longer say, I made mistakes. You say, I am the mistake. And once the brain accepts that narrative, it begins unconsciously creating behaviors that confirm it. Stage 4, self-destruction. At this stage, the person often knows they are sabotaging themselves, but they continue anyway, because destruction starts feeling familiar. The brain chooses predictable pain over uncertain growth. You may push people away, ruin opportunities, quit too early, create unnecessary conflict, destroy progress right before success. Not because you want suffering, but because your nervous system associates survival with emotional familiarity. Chaos becomes home, and peace begins to feel uncomfortable. This is where self-sabotage becomes automatic. Stage 5, emotional collapse. Eventually, the system overloads. The mind becomes exhausted from constant internal resistance. Motivation disappears. Energy fades. Emotional numbness begins replacing emotion itself. At this point, many people stop trying entirely. Not because they lack potential, but because the brain no longer believes change is safe. The nervous system enters shutdown mode, and the person starts existing instead of living. This is emotional collapse. The final stage of long-term self-sabotage. Stage 6, people-pleasing. Now sabotage becomes social. You start abandoning your own needs to avoid rejection. You say yes when you want to say no. You suppress opinions. You become emotionally available to everyone, except yourself. Your identity starts depending on external approval, and the more validation you seek, the less connected you become to your real self. People-pleasing feels peaceful externally, but internally, it creates resentment, emptiness, and self-abandonment. Stage 7, overcommitment. At this stage, the brain begins compensating. You try to prove your worth through constant effort. More work, more responsibility, more pressure. You believe productivity will finally silence insecurity, but instead, your nervous system enters chronic overload. You stop resting. You stop processing emotions. You stop listening to your body. And eventually, you become emotionally disconnected from yourself. This is where burnout silently begins. Stage 8, procrastination. Now the system becomes paralyzed. Tasks feel heavier. Simple decisions feel exhausting. The brain starts associating action with emotional danger. So instead of moving forward, you freeze. Hours disappear. Opportunities disappear. Potential disappears. Not because you're incapable, but because your nervous system is overwhelmed by internal conflict. Procrastination is not laziness. It's psychological resistance. Stage 9, self-criticism. At this point, the inner voice becomes hostile. Every mistake becomes evidence. Every failure becomes identity. You speak to yourself with a level of cruelty you would never use on another person. And the brain listens, because repeated self-criticism changes emotional conditioning. Eventually, you stop needing external criticism. Your own mind does it automatically. This creates permanent emotional tension. And slowly, the person becomes their own psychological enemy. Stage 10, the cycle repeats. And this is the most dangerous part. Self-sabotage is cyclical, because every failure created by the sabotage becomes proof that the negative beliefs were correct. The brain says, "See, I told you," and the cycle restarts. Doubt, avoidance, negative loops, destruction, collapse, again and again, unless something interrupts the pattern. The truth is, self-sabotage is rarely about weakness. Most of the time, it's a nervous system trying to protect you from pain using patterns that no longer serve you. But protection can become a prison, and awareness is often the first step toward freedom. Because once you can see the pattern, you stop confusing it with who you are. And that's where change begins. This has been another ArchiveNeural analysis.